begin with the mean of group data for this morning. Now, this will be our formula over here. So the mean for group data is given by the following formula, where X bar is the mean. Take note of this. The F is the frequency of a class, meaning the frequency katong ato ang pila ka buok ani nga class. Okay? X is the class midpoint. By the way, when I say class, it means, like, for example, 1 to 5. This is a class. It's an interval from 1 to 5. 6 to 10. This is another class. Okay? So, how many had a score of 1 to 5? For example, we have 6. So, this is the frequency of this class. We don't know, kisay asa nga score ana, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? The only thing you're given is there are students who got a score of 1 to 5. And another one, what about who got a score of 6 to 10? For example, there are 12 students. So we don't know kung which student got 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But we only know here is only there are 12 students who got a score of 6 to 10. So that's what you call the frequency of the class. These are classes. Okay? X is the class midpoint. N is the sample size of, or the total frequency. So let's begin with our first example. Now, before having the examples, let's have the steps first. To compute for the mean of a given group data, follow these steps. Number 1, add 2 columns to the right of the frequency distribution table. Now, in our example later on, you are given a table that contains the classes and the frequencies. So you will be adding another 2 columns, 1 column for the midpoints, and 1 column for the product of the frequency and the midpoint. Again, add 2 columns, 1 column for the midpoint, and 1 column for fx. Okay? Now, step number 2. Solve the class midpoint. How do you solve the class midpoint? You get the mean of the lower limit and the upper limit of that interval. Like, for example, 16 to 20. This is what you call the lower limit. This one over here. This is what you call the upper limit. So to get the class midpoint, it's so simple. 16 plus 20 divided by 2. What is 16 plus 20? That will give you 36. Divided by 2, what is 36 divided by 2? Okay, so this will be the class midpoint for this class. Okay? Don't worry, we will have more on that as we go on with the examples. Step number 3. Complete the 4th column. So, ang step number 2, ang column sa midpoint, fill that up. In step number 3, complete the 4th column, meaning you multiply F and X. Multiply the frequency with its midpoint. Step number 4. Add all the entries in fx to get this summation of fx. By the way, you read this as summation of fx. Okay? So this is the symbol for summation. Now, step number 5. Add all the entries, add all the frequencies to get n. And lastly, whatever is your result in number 4 and number 5, substitute to the formula to get get the mean. Now, let's apply the 6 steps in our example number 1. So, we have here, this is the frequency that shows the scores of the students in a math quiz. So, you have here, there are 3 students who got a score of 13 to 15. 11 students got a score of 16 to 18. 14 students got a score of 19 to 21. 7 students got a score of 22 to 24. And 5 students got a score of 25 to 27. And this is what you call a frequency distribution table. Okay? Now, let's go to step 1. Diba step number 1 is add 2 columns. A column for the midpoint and a column for fx. That is step number 1. Is step number 1 clear? Okay. Go to step number 2. Step number 2 is solve the midpoint. So let's start with this class limit. What is the lower limit here? Sir, it's 13. What is the upper limit? Sir, it's 15. So to get the midpoint, that's 13 plus 15 divided by 2. What is 13 plus 15? What is 28 divided by 2? There you go. That will give you 14. Okay? The same thing with the second class limit. Or what are you gonna add over here, Kini, to get this midpoint? Kini siya nga midpoint. You will be adding. Okay, add 16 and 18 divided by 2. Now, what is 16 plus 18 there? 34. Divided by 2 ang 34. What is 17? 34 divided by 2 is 17. Okay? Now, what about 19 plus 21? Divided by 2. 20. What about 22 plus 24? Divided by 2 is how much? 23. What about 25 plus 27? 52. Divided by 2. 26. Now, sir, is there another way of getting the midpoint? Yes, there is. Awaha, look at this one. Diba this is 13, 14, 15. We're simply getting the median. O, pila median aning 13, 14, 15? 14, 16, 17, 18. What's the median? 17. So see to it that these numbers is between these given numbers. 17 is between 16 and 18. Okay? So that is step number 2. Is step number 2 clear? Okay, let's go to step 3. Step 3 is multiply the frequency and the midpoint. The f times the x. Now, what is 3 times 14? Okay, that's 42. 3 times 14. What about 11 times 17? 187. What about 14 times 20? 280. What about 7 times 23? 161. What about 5 times 26? 130. Now, Next step, step number 4, add all the entries in your fx. Kini silang tanan, you will be adding that. And how much is that? 42 plus 187 plus 280 plus 161 plus 130. You will be 800. That's correct. So the summation, the sum of fx is 800. That's step number 4. Step number 5. Add all the frequencies. Kini. So what is 3 plus 11 plus 14 plus 7 plus 5? 40. So n is equal to 40. So let's go to our formula now. Substitute this one over here. Substitute 40 over here. So our formula is now, what is the summation of fx? What is this equal to? 800. What about n? Okay, so 800 divided by 40. How much is 800 divided by 40? Oh, that is the mean of this frequency distribution table. Any questions regarding our first example? Are there any questions about our first example? Is everything clear? Okay, let's continue with our second example. So for example, you have this frequency distribution table. Just disregard this. These are not ages of women who, when they each had a boyfriend. Okay, it's impossible that at the age of 50, 79, yes, the table will be given. Don't worry about that. Okay? The frequency distribution table is given in the problem. Now, so take note, there are 3 nga na ay 50 to 54, 6, 55 to 59, so on and so forth. 5, 60 to 64. Now, let's begin with the first step. Unsa gid yung first step na to? What's our first step? Add 2 columns, correct. So add 2 columns for the midpoint and the fx. Okay, next step. Get the midpoint. How do you solve the midpoint now? How do you solve the midpoint? Okay, you will be adding 50 and 54. What is 50 plus 54 divided by 2? 104 divided by 2, you will get 52 for that. What about 55? 55 plus 59 divided by 2. 57. What about 60 plus 64? Divided by 2. 62, correct. What about 65 plus 69? Divided by 2, 67. I guess you see the pattern already, right? What about 70 plus 74 divided by 2? 72. 72. What about 75 plus 79 divided by 2? That's 77. Okay? Now, what is the next step after getting the midpoint? Okay, multiply f and x. So what is 3 times 52? 156. 156. What about 6 times 57? 342. What about 5 times 62? 310. What about 6 times 67? 402. 8 times 72? 576. 2 times 77 will give you 154. Oh, what is the next thing that you're gonna do now? Okay, add all the entries in the FX. Okay, kindly add these numbers. 156 plus 342 plus 310 plus 402 plus 576 plus 154. We have 1,940. Okay, after getting the sum of FX, what is the next thing that you're gonna do now? Okay, very good. Add all the frequencies. And how much do you get when you add all the frequencies? 30, correct. And is 30. Oh, you substitute everything to your formula. What is this equal to? Divided by n, that's 1,940 divided by 30. You will be getting 64.67. Diba your answer sa calculator is 64.6666? Am I right? Okay. Round off to 2 decimal places all the time. Okay. So, are there any questions about example number 2? Okay. Let's go to example number 3. Our last example for this morning. We have there the first midpoint. It's 13. 11 plus 15, 26 divided by 2, that's 13. What about the second midpoint? 18. That's 16 plus 20 is 36 divided by 2 is 18. What about 21 plus 25 divided by 2? 23. What about 26 plus 30 divided by 2? 28. Next one. 31 plus 35. Oh, okay, divided by 2. 33. Next. 38 for 36 to 40. What about 41 to 46? 43. What about 46 to 50? 48. Okay, next thing to do is what? Okay, what is the product of the frequency and the midpoint? We have 3 times 13. 39. 6 times 18. 100. 108. Okay. What about 6 times 23? 138. What about 6 times 20? 3 times 28. 84. 2 times 33. 66. 4 times 38. 152. 3 times 43. 129. 3 times 48. 144. Oh, what is the next thing to do again? Add all the FX. And what is the sum of the FX here? $860. Okay? What about the sum of all the frequencies? 30. N is equal to 30. So substitute this to the formula. You will have 860 divided by 30 is how much? 28 0.67.